Hello, and thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Anne, and her experience occurred in June of 1981. Open quote. After I passed out in x ray, I was put into an empty semi private room. It was around 10 p.m. at night. As they got me into bed, I remember how shockingly cold the hospital floor was. It was early summer, and I had worn flip flops to the hospital, so my feet were bare, and I could not believe how cold the floor was in the hospital room. I also noticed how filthy my feet were. It has stayed with me ever since. I was alone in my hospital bed. It was very dark with the lights out, and everything quiet for the night. I was having trouble falling asleep. I was tossing and turning. My hand was bandaged. I had an IV going of antibiotics, and then I felt like I was going to pass out again, like I had an x-ray. So I decided to try to fight the sensation because I didn't like it. I knew I couldn't fall down again, but just that spinning, dizzy feeling wasn't comfortable. I rolled onto my left side, and I grabbed the bed rail. The sensation passed, and I thought I had recovered from swooning. I rolled onto my back, and that's when I realized I was no longer in my body. My first sensation was very strange. I couldn't feel my body at all, but I knew I was not paralyzed. I sat up and felt the sensation of passing through a warm wall of gel. I don't know how to describe it. Like thick, warm shampoo. Really bizarre. It wasn't dry and it wasn't liquid. It was like both at the same time. There was no pain, and then I swung my legs off the bed and stood up. It was then that I noticed the hospital floor wasn't cold anymore. I couldn't feel the temperature of the floor at all. I could see my body on the bed, but I wasn't afraid of it or freaked out from being outside of it. It was the same sensation you have when you get out of your car. It's there, it's parked, and you don't think about it anymore. I didn't worry about it at all. It wasn't scary, and I never worried about it. At the point the room started to expand, it got bigger and it changed. The curtain that once hung from the ceiling of my hospital room was not on a rack to my left side and just ahead of me. It was like a time warp had occurred. Suddenly, there was a bright yellow lung machine against the far wall, and the window in the wall had gotten bigger too. It was like a scene from a film in the 1940s, and nothing about that registered with me at the time. It was just all accepted like this was normal. Nothing I saw was ever alarming or frightening. That's in all caps. Now I was alone in my hospital room, but suddenly there was a man before me. His back was turned to me, and he was also had a hospital gown. Thankfully, I could not see the back of it. LOL. He seemed older, around late 60s, and I didn't know him. I never questioned why he was in my room. Then everything went pitch black, the darkest dark ever. I remember never having fear. I was suddenly struck blind. I just accepted that everything went dark. I remember putting my hand before my face to see if I could see my hand, and I couldn't. I knew I was still standing up, and I knew I had not traveled out of my hospital room. I had not taken a single step from the side of the bed, but everything was just pitch black. Room is the wrong word. It's an area. I could tell it was immense and close at the same time. It was completely silent. There was no noise, and nothing was in there with me. I sensed nothing with me. It had all the fanfare of waiting for the school bus or my mom to come pick me up. It wasn't scary and I wasn't worried. I had a thought to school kids on the playground who used to torment me for not being baptized and telling me I was going to be thrown into a lake of fire for not being baptized like them. I thought, God, question mark, all caps, and that's when the door appeared. In the door, in the dark, a door slightly ajar came open. It was about 500 feet from me. And the instant I thought of going to the door, and instantly I was at that door. As I put my hand to the doorknob, I felt like I was walking into the house where I lived. I had not questioned about why the door was there. It was comfortable and welcoming, and I was quote unquote home. As I opened the door, the room was solid white. The first thing I noticed was the seam where the floor met the wall, and it just wasn't there. I thought that was very odd. I followed with my eyes, seemingly going to the corner, but there was no sharp edge or corner. And then I started looking up the wall, looking for the seam where the walls meet, but there wasn't one either. It was very bizarre to my young mind. I had never seen anything like that, and as I raised my head to look up the wall, I saw the ceiling of heaven. It was blue sky, as expansive and beautiful as the sky over our heads, but somewhat brighter and more vivid. I've never seen a sky like that before or since. It was huge, all caps, massive, all caps. We don't have words big enough to describe this. It was as big as the sky over your own head now. It was huge. There were bright, fluffy clouds and some birds, and I noticed the edge of it. I noticed it was surrounded by crown molding. As my eyes followed the beauty of the scrolling, I saw it was supported by a massive beam that had a carousel carving to it, like the pole that goes through the horse you ride on. Again, no fear, no question of where I was, and I just accepted everything I was seeing and experiencing. I had no clue I was in heaven. At this point is when the male angel showed up. Everything from this point on is telepathic communication. They never quote unquote spoke in the way we do. This was all in the mind. Every word and nuance, every gesture and feeling I was very aware of. He didn't poof into the room. He did not walk in. He did not fly in. He didn't even have any wings. He was dressed like someone from my neighborhood. He was very handsome. He reminded me of a boy I liked at my school. He was tall and blond and rugged looking. He had on a red flannel shirt, and I could see the white undershirt peeking out from beneath, and he had on 501 Levi's jeans and black converse high-top sneakers. Of course, this struck me as very odd because at the same time everyone was wearing white reebok high tops, and I thought his fashion choice was way off. At this, he smirked and said, "Do you want to stay or do you want to go?" And instantly I felt I had all the time in the world to make my choice. Instantly I thought of my mother. During the time that I was thinking of my mom, I saw her in the living room of our home on the phone getting word from my dad that I was coding, and they were doing all they could. I had been found dead in my bed by my dad. I could feel my mother's fear and hurt that she could lose me. It made me concerned she would be upset if I stayed in heaven. Would I miss my mother too much if I stayed? And would I get in trouble with her if I stayed, open parens, in heaven, close parens? As I rolled that thought around in my mind, a female angel showed up. She was blonde and smaller than me and dressed in a yellow dress. She also had no wings. I didn't immediately realize I was talking to what I call quote-unquote angels. Then she said, "You don't have to worry about that. Your relationship with your mother will change later on." And instantly I had no more concerns about what my mother thought of or felt about my choice, and the scene of her on the phone with my dad ended. At this point, I still had no idea where I was, who I was talking to, or what was going on. I didn't feel confused either. Everything was just accepted, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And I was deciding to stay in this place with these people or go back to my life on Earth. At this point, a really odd thing started to happen. I had the sensation of being two people at once. Not that my soul was torn in two or anything, just that there was me, there was another me at the same time. The other me was older, wiser, and knew stuff that I didn't. I call it flight control, quote, flight control, because it's like they are the control tower. It's hard to explain. To me, making the decision to stay or go, and the part of me that was already there. I knew that part was long term and never left this place. It's hard to describe or explain. As the angel who very much didn't want me to return to Earth railed against me going back, the other half of me countered with reasons to go back to Earth. Let me read, close quote. I'm just going to read a couple sentences again. I had the sensation of being two people at once. Not that my soul was torn in two or anything, just that there was me, there was another me at the same time. The other me was older, wiser, and knew stuff that I didn't. I call it flight control, because it's like they are the control tower. The other me, I don't know. It's hard to explain. The me making the decision to stay or go, and the part of me that was already there. I knew that part was long term and never left this place. It's hard to describe or explain. Okay, open quote. As the angel who very much didn't want me to return to Earth railed against me going back, the other half of me countered with reasons to go back to Earth. Quote, I still have to have my son, I thought, and I instantly knew that having my son was part of my life purpose. A goal for living was to be his mother and raise him. Nothing about who his dad would be or anything like that, just that I had to have my son and raise him. And I also knew this was much later in life, in my 30s. I put a pin in that. And then the angel said, your life will always be a struggle. Now I had no idea what that meant. I'm only 17, without a brain in my head, and my first thought/question was, for food, question, shelter, and there was no answer. But I knew the struggle had nothing to do with money or food or anything material like that. It was something else, and it was going to happen soon. And then the angel said to me, there are choices you can make that can cost you your soul. And again, I had no clue what that meant, all caps 0. As I stood there confused, the angel showed me, all caps, war. In this quote-unquote video, I was on Earth and older. I was much older, my age now, and I was running with a group of people being led by a soldier. But I couldn't place the uniform he had on, It was khaki color, and our guys in the military in the United States wore green fatigues, so that makes no sense. I saw the guy had a rifle, and we were all running for safety. I could see the smoke and hear the bullets being fired, and I could see the sandbags and the block walls we were running for. And the soldier had on a square backpack, which reminded me of the soldiers of World War One, but it was very square, not rounded at the corners, so it was confusing. Then the scene ended. This female angel who showed me all this was being stopped by someone I could not see or hear. They were having a conversation, and I knew it had something to do with my free will if she showed me any more. The person who arrived never showed themselves, and there was no recrimination or judgment or admonishment. The woman I was talking to now stood before a very long sheet on a clothesline. About 80 people were behind her a short distance off, and I could not see them clearly, but I knew they were there to welcome me. And I could feel from this woman a grandmotherly aunt sort of feeling, very caring, and that we had known each other for eons, all caps, not just years or decades, but eons before the world was formed. And she had my best interest at heart. Then the other part of me, the one I mentioned before, spoke up and said, I have a lot of work to do. And my first thought was, quote unquote, digging ditches. Then I agreed that I did have a lot of work to do on Earth, even though I had no clue what that work was. And then I had a falling sensation, and I was slammed with great force into my body in my hospital bed. My father had hold of my foot with a great look of concern and fear on his face. A look I would not wish any parent, a look I had never seen before or since, and my dad was a World War II Pearl Harbor survivor. The nurse said, quote unquote, welcome back. She looked at my dad and then to me and said, he'll be okay, and began to peel the stickers off of me. I have remembered this event all these years. The rage I felt toward my sister that caused us to fight all the time was gone. We never fought again. I never told my father about my NDE. I didn't think he would believe me. He died in 1997. I never told my fiancée, who was murdered in cold blood 5 months after our engagement in 1990, because he was devout, and I didn't think he would believe me. I know now that was the struggle the angel was trying to tell me about. The struggle of heartbreak, the choices we can make that can cost me my soul? Question. Suicide? I did have my son in 1998 at age 34. My son is 23 now, and he's an EMT, and I told both of my kids about my NDE. Other things have come true from my NDE. My relationship to my mother did change. We no longer speak. She's very lost and in the care of my sister. I told my mother about my NDE when I was 40 years old. She told me the quote-unquote work I had to do was spiritual. As for war, that remains to be seen. But I know I die in that. I saw no more of my life after showing me that war scene. I think I get shot, but time will tell. End quote. Wow. There's a couple of questions. Did you feel separated from your body? Answer, yes. During the time I was thinking of my mom, I saw her in the living room of our home on the phone getting word from my dad that I was coding and they were doing all they could. I could feel her fear and hurt that she could lose me, her worry, her stress. There are not enough words to describe it. It was like I was her, in her skin at that moment. It made me concerned she would be upset if I stayed in heaven. I worried about her survival if I died. I clearly left my body and existed outside it. Question. How did your highest level of consciousness and alertness during the experience compared to your normal everyday consciousness and alertness? Answer. More consciousness and alertness than normal. I knew things I could not possibly have known. There's no way I could know I would give birth to a male child in my 30s, which I did. Yet I wasn't told about my daughter, and I was not married to her dad. So that could be why. My son was conceived during my marriage. My daughter was not. So that could be why I was not told about her. I don't know. But she is precious to me, which drives home even more of what I saw my mother going through when she got that call from my dad. There's no way I could know the backpack on that soldier is a satellite phone invented in 1984, 3 years after my NDE. I could never predict that our military would be running around in khaki uniforms today. The same ones I saw in my NDE are the ones we see on TV now. Question. At what time during the experience were you at your highest level of consciousness and alertness? Answer. When I was talking to the angels is when I knew stuff I could not possibly ever know. But due to my lack of religious education, I had no clue what was going on until later. They had no wings, no flowing robes, no flaming swords. That would have terrified me. Not once I was ever shown anything scary or horrible. Question. Did time seem to speed up or slow down? Answer. Everything seemed to be happening at once, or time stopped or lost all meaning. When I was asked, do you want to stay or go? I had all the time in the world. I didn't have a thought to my dead body lying in that hospital bed. I didn't worry about how long I was taking. I had no one banging on the door saying, hurry up. I could take years if I wanted. During that time, I was enjoying the scenery, the animals, the grass. Everything had a life force. I felt no pressure whatsoever to make my choice. There was no clock. I had a sense, as I was told things were going to happen, how far in advance would they come. But that was all ballpark. I was also not told of anything negative. Nothing was rushed. Question. Please compare your vision during the experience to your everyday vision that you had immediately prior to the experience. Answer. At age 17, I was in peak performance condition, but I could see things beyond regular vision. Not just the trees of heaven, but the life force behind them, every little cell of the leaves, every thought the other angels had, their feelings. It's beyond anything we experience on earth. Imagine knowing how your friends really feels about something. It's like that. Question. Did you see an unearthly light? Answer. Yes. The light was in everything. Everything was alive in its own right. The quote-unquote light of life. The grass, the sheet between us, the angels I spoke to, the scenery, the trees, everything. It vibrated with light and peace and love and joy and harmony. It's the best of the best. Question. Did you seem to enter some other unearthly world? Answer. A clearly mystical or unearthly realm. Walked through the door and it was so clean and white. There was no ego, no one-upmanship, and, quote, and all caps, no fear. I can't stress that enough. My life was full of fear from my mother, and yet I had none of that when I walked through that door. There was a definite separation between our earthly life and the life we have in that place I call heaven. I remember being struck by no ego. I didn't worry about anything. I didn't worry about not being good enough. I didn't worry about anything, no matter how weird it got. And no fear. Every single day we have worries in the back of our mind. Will a plane fall out of the sky and hit my house? Will there be an earthquake or a tornado or a tsunami? Nothing like that exists in that realm. Nothing can hurt you there. Nothing can be destroyed or waste away. There is a level of peace that I can simply not describe, and only by experiencing that can one understand what I mean. Question. What emotions did you feel during the experience? Answer. Peace, joy, confusion, elation, a sense of comfort, continuance, that our lives are in fact guided and pre-designed. They're just not words. It's like grandma's house, great food, peace, you know you're okay, happy. I can't put it into words. It's a feeling. peace, all caps, and no ego, no stress, no worry, no fears, no thoughts about tomorrow or work. Just, how do I explain this? Question mark. Question. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything? Answer. Everything about myself or others. I understood how the angels felt about me, their concerns, their love for me. Very grandmotherly, protective, worried. Life on earth is like war, like the front lines of France in World War II. I felt my mother's love for me and concern. I had every understanding of these goals in my life, such as having my son in my 30s. I gave birth to him at 34, and I knew my life would be rough if I came back, but not exactly why. I understood everything within my limited understanding. Question. Did scenes from your past come back to you? Answer. No, yes. My relationship to my mother and sister. My mother had a favorite in my sister, and our relationship was not that great. My dad and I had a great bond. I was partly worried my mother would be mad at me if I stayed because she was mad at me most of the time. Yet I still worried if I was going to miss her too much. But at the same time, I worried about being in trouble with her, like a bad kid doing a bad thing if I stayed in heaven and pissing her off. That's why opening the door was such a big deal for me, having a quote-unquote home feeling. In life, I used to come home from school and say things like, at least she can't kill me, because I was in trouble from the moment I walked in the door with my mother. I always had the feeling she didn't really like me, which is probably why I had such a great relationship with my dad. Question. Did scenes from the future come back to you? Answer. Scenes from the world's future when I was shown war. The uniform a soldier had on was not the uniform of the day. Our guys wore green fatigues, always. This was a light tan outfit top to bottom. A large square backpack, but not like the ones they wore in World War One. My dad was in the military, so I was familiar with military attire. Today, I see those uniforms on the TV. I know what's coming. I know we'll be in war. I know people will be rounded up. I know that I will be one of them that is, quote-unquote, escorted under heavy fire to safety. I'm pretty sure I died during that move by a gunshot. Question. Did you come to a border or point of no return? Answer. I came to a definite conscious decision to return to life. The other me, my other half, it said, I have a lot of work to do. And I thought, what work? Digging ditches? It made no sense to me at all. But I also agreed with that. There is a lot of work to do on Earth. And then I was thrown back into my body. I had a sensation of falling a short distance, and literally I was slammed, all caps, back into my body. I remember it being slightly cold, too, on re-entry. The force of my being back in my body was so hard, I thought I might not walk again. I worried about that, and I did a systems check to make sure everything was still working. My legs, my spine, my hips, my fingers. I worried. Question. What was your religion prior to the experience? Your experience? Answer. Unaffiliated atheist. I was raised in an atheist household. There was never any discussion of God or afterlife. I was told that you just click off at the time of death, and that was that. We never talked about heaven or hell or angels or anything like that. We never attended church, even though there were several around. My parents were hippies of the 1960s, and we were even in San Francisco at the time. They were into New Age belief systems, and nothing mattered as far as eternal souls. They believed in reincarnation and Buddhism, but I would not call them Buddhist. Question. Have your religious practices changed since your experience? Answer. Yes. Some of my experience reflects in the Bible. I didn't see a tunnel. I saw a door. The same door as John did in Revelations 4:1. I am a firm rapture believer. I know that God's infinite patience with us. I have seen angels. I know they exist. They know everything about us and lovingly support us, even our sins, even the things we do that we know are wrong due to our own free will. I wish there was a way to convey this, LOL. I am a Bible believer, not just a Christian. I know every word of the Bible is true. Question, what is your religion now? Christian, other Christian? I'm a Bible-believing Christian now. I saw things that are in the Bible, like the door that John talks about in Revelations 4:1. I saw a door, not a tunnel of light. Many things about my experience are stated in the Holy Bible, which at the time of my NDE, I had never read the Bible. I had no understanding of the Bible and no religious education. There's no way I could have known about any of that beforehand. Question, did your experience include features consistent with your earthly beliefs? Answer, content that was not entirely consistent. I had no clue where I was or what was going on. I was never told about God or heaven. I wonder what more my experience would have been if I had been told about any of that. How many choices would I have made differently in my youth if I had been told about the love of God and how much we are cared for? I had that from my dad, but not from my mother. Not even after my NDE, I didn't share it with anyone. I didn't trust that I would be believed, and how do I tell someone about this without thinking I'm crazy? I was in a pack of atheists, and I had been to heaven. I would have been laughed out of the room. I wish I told my dad before he died, but again, there are things that we never discussed in my home growing up. Not then, and not for decades after. I was after my dad died that I told my mother, but then she was in what I regard as a cult and slipping away from us all. Question, did you have a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Answer, yes. I don't care what people have. I'm more about how they treat you. I don't care about wealth or the trappings of life. To me, the accumulation of wealth is like chains on your body. It's just more to worry about. I see how misled people are and how they worry of stuff that isn't going to last. Question, did you seem to encounter a mystical being or presence or hear an unidentifiable voice? Answer, I encountered a definite being. There were two angels, one male and one female. Another showed up, but I could not see them. They stopped the female angel from telling me more for fear of interfering with my free will. She was very concerned about me returning to Earth. The male angel was more hanging back, like a big brother. There, protective, but not actively participating other than to say, do you want to stay or go? Very supportive, loving, kind from both of them, very personal and interesting and protective. The next question states, did you see religious spirits? Religion never entered the picture. They never asked me what faith I was. I think they knew I had no religious education and therefore did not show me anything that might overwhelm me. When I said this experience is very personalized, I mean they know everything about you, how you are raised, who your best friend is, etc. It's very detailed to you. Question. Did you encounter or become aware of any beings who previously lived on Earth who are described by name in religions? For example, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha. Answer, uncertain the person who showed up to stop the female angel. I could not see them, but they were definitely there, and I was quote-unquote cut off from that conversation. I just got the impression that whatever she was going to show me would interfere with my free will and my choice to stay in heaven or not, without being mean or judging or admonishing me. A barrier was up, a sheet between us, and she just exuded love and a deep concern for my life on Earth if I returned. I have no idea who stopped her. It could have been an archangel or Jesus himself. I guess I find out when I go back. Question, during your experience, did you gain information about universal connection or oneness? Answer, yes, it's so personalized. I can't stress that enough. Everything is about you and you alone. You are connected to everything, every person you know, every person you have not met yet. And when that connection hits, you know it. You may not say, but you know it. Like my connection to the angels. I could have been their daughter, not just someone who showed up. We were family, connected for eons. I felt loved and cherished. I wish we had words to express it. You are their sole focus, your happiness. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about the existence of God? Answer. Yes, in so many ways. When I was in the void and called out to God, that door showed up. That light I saw, when that person showed up to stop the lady angel from telling me more, that force, that presence was loving and encouraging and helpful, good, all caps, and never admonishing or hurtful, but guiding. Everything about it was good, kind, supportive, caring. Question. During your experience, did you gain special knowledge or information about your purpose? Answer. Yes, having my son, that was a purpose. I have to be his mom. Knowing about the coming war, that will occur in my lifetime, and part of my purpose is comforting others. I think of my NDE as an eyewitness, and everything is taken care of. We just have to let go of all the little distractions, all the things like road rage at strangers and such. I still struggle with that. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about the meaning of life? Answer. Yes. Coming back to Earth and having my son was a big priority. He had a job to do, and I had to be his mom. My values, experience, and psyche were all involved in his being able to do his job on this earth. He's 23 now. He has a very unpopular and specific interest, and it makes more sense to me now why I need to be his mom and not someone else. Children are predestined, even the abused ones. Life experiences sculpt them for their experience to raise their own children. That was clear to me during our discussion of going or staying, and one of my goals being having my son later in life. I had him after the party time, after I grew up, when I was mature enough to handle it. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about an afterlife? Answer. An afterlife definitely exists. Yes, this was quote-unquote home. I was home. I needed to do nothing more if I stayed. I didn't see any houses, but it was like Earth. There were plants and trees and animals. No pets I recognized because at the time I died, no one in my family that I knew had died before. Both sets of my grandparents were all living, my parents, siblings, friends, everyone. Not even pets had died, so there was no one I could quote-unquote meet in heaven that preceded me. If I chose to stay, I knew I was going to be taken care of by the most loving people anyone could ever meet. That lady angel was like my grandmother or a favorite aunt. That place was home, and we do continue on in a very loving, kind, peaceful, grace-filled habitat. Question. Did you gain information how to live our lives? Answer. Uncertain. How do I express this? How do I use more words? Short of being able to take you by the hand and having you live it. That's the only way I wish I could express to people. Those who know say I have the patience of a saint now. Stuff that used to bug me to no end just doesn't. I wait in line. I don't care about money, LOL, all sorts of things. Question. During your experience, did you gain information about life's difficulties, challenges, and hardships? Answer. Yes. I was told my life was going to be a struggle. I had no clue what that meant. Digging ditches, I thought, as a 17-year-old girl who didn't even had a job yet. That was the worst thing I could think of, how horrible it could be. But I was thinking in physical terms. The struggle she referred to was heartbreak. When someone you love dies, it is a daily struggle to get through one day. Some days are worse than others. I knew I had a short time, but just how short or who? She was stopped from telling me, because if I had been told I would lose the love of my life to murder, I may have decided not to go through that. It would have impacted everything I have had to do in this life. Raising my son, who I had after I lost my loving Daryl. That's the struggle. It's emotional, personal, impacting. Nothing physical matters. Not your money, not your job, nothing else. Just how we impact people. During the experience, did you gain information about love? Answer. Yes. While watching my mother, who I thought hated me, feeling her heart get torn in two at the thought of losing me. That hurt me as much as it hurt her. How much that lady angel loved me and didn't want me to go back. How she was my best friend. How protective that male angel was, and his strength and calm, like a big brother, making sure we were okay in the playground. So many instances. Even in the war scene, that love of that soldier leading us to safety, it was all there. Question. What life changes occurred in your life after your experience? Answer. Large changes in my life. I am more patient. That was right off the bat. My sister and I were oil and water. We fought over everything. I was jealous of how much more my mother liked her than me. After my experience, I didn't care about it anymore, and my sis and I no longer fought. That change in personality was extreme. I don't care about money or material things. I'm not joking. I don't value people by what they have. I value them by how they treat people. I noticed I am more gullible, as some would say. I am easily cheated. I don't like spending money because I don't care about it. The things that people hold in high esteem, I hold in low esteem. I don't understand their fixation or what they have and how important that makes them. It's so vapid to me. Kindness first. Watch out for kids and make sure they're okay. I am an excellent mom from what everyone says, even my ex-husband. I have very intolerant to sin. I try to understand why people think the way they think. Most of it's from fear and a few other quote unquote gifts that I got, like my extra electricity. I like to freak people out with that. When I am caged, I will still talk about God and his love for us all and how it's not too late. And this world is ending and a wonderful one is on its way. Question. Have your relationship changed specifically because of your experience? Answer. Yes. My sister and I no longer fought, and my mother's favoritism for my sibling no longer impacted me like before. I also made sure to protect my own kids from her mind games, something I would have never done before my NDE. Question. You have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? Answer. Yes, I know who is on the phone before it rings. I know when someone I care for has died. I can sense people, like know their feelings and adopt it. If they're upset, I get upset too, to their same level. I didn't know about that for a long time. Question. Are there one or several parts of your experience that are especially meaningful or significant to you? Question or answer. Being told about my son before he was born, that drove my mother-in-law nuts because I knew he was going to be a boy and she fought that till the day he was born. I could not tell her how I knew it, but my husband knew. I told him about my NDE, the angels and how they dressed. There was a comedy show that was making fun of a woman who said she saw angels. Then she described the male angel I saw to a T, flannel shirt and high top sneakers. I'll never forget that. In that moment, I knew who and what I had been talking to. Other confirmations have occurred. At the time of my NDE, I didn't know that NDE even had a name. It took me years to understand what happened and that it had a name, and other people have them too. Across the globe, through every social, religious, and economic barrier. Question. Oh, is there anything else that you would like to add about your experience? Answer. This world is ending, and the best thing we can do is bring people to God, to know God, and be with God when their time comes. I got into nursing after my NDE. I have been a hospice nurse. I have been a patient listener to those in pain, and I attribute my success in my career to the understanding I received during my NDE. End quote. What an amazing story that was. The discussion with the angels to go back or stay, her decision, her split person, and the angel wanting to maybe show her more and then not being allowed to because it would impact her free will. There were a lot of interesting nuggets there. Shed a little more light. Thank you for listening.